Hey guys, welcome to Coquitlam. We're pretty close to Vancouver in Canada, and today we get to check out an e-bike from a Canadian company called iGO. This is the Bonaventure, and that's such an interesting name. First time I heard it, I thought like Bonafide Adventure, but I guess this is actually just the name of a street that the folks who designed and built this like to ride on in Montreal. And they have two other bikes in this Discovery series, and the next one up is called the Atwater, and it's basically the same geometry, same drivetrain, same motor, everything is the same, except the frame is a step-thru. Okay, it's not going to be quite as stiff and just kind of rigid feeling as this. This one's going to be a little bit better if you want that sporty feel, or you just want that high step look, or if you just like blue, because this is metallic blue and that one comes in metallic charcoal. And then they have another model, which is called the Berri. And that one is slightly different. Instead of using 28-inch or 700C wheels, it uses 26-inch wheels. So it brings the whole platform down, and apparently the frame is slightly different with a little bit of a shorter reach, and again that step over. So kind of seems like a his and hers setup, right? You got the white Berri with the smaller wheels for her, and then it, you know, generally the male is a little bit larger, and he could get the you know, the black step-thru Atwater or this high step Bonaventure. So for me, this is kind of a cool bike because it's a really great hybrid experience. You've got a lot of city features and hardware, but you've also got some mountain biking, sort of trail-ready features. We do have a suspension fork up here in the front and that flat handlebar, but again, it's connected by this tool-free adjustable stem. So, you know, this hybrid category is kind of cool. I feel like they're really just throwing everything at this bike, trying to completely outfit it. It has these awesome tubular aluminum alloy fenders with really nice mounts that are inside the fender, and they connect directly to the lowers of that suspension fork. Same thing in the rear, and it's so sturdy, in fact, that they were able to utilize this as the support for the rack, as well as that main support leg right there. So rated at 25 kilograms, 55 pounds. That's impressive for a rear rack. That's kind of what that's the upper level of most included rear racks or aftermarket parts. I love that it has integrated lights, and that it's got a couple of other nice little touch points that are comfortable or useful. So this bike is rated up to 300 pounds, which is quite good, and they've used some nice hardware to make that possible. Up here we've got 13 gauge spokes, and in the rear we have 12 gauge spokes, so that's even thicker in the rear. Both of them have 36 hole rims or 36 spokes, and they're using reinforcement eyelets on the rim there, so that's going to add just a little bit more strength. It's a really good setup. And coming back to this frame, the high step diamond, that's like the sturdiest frame. So I think you could probably have a rider who weighs even more than 300, but that's just their official rating, which is still quite good. And the motor is actually very capable. I was extremely impressed because the specs of the motor are just kind of yeah, okay, you know, this is a 500 watt planetary geared hub motor rated at 53 newton meters of torque, and in the United States it can go up to 750 watts. So, you know, to me that's like, yeah, okay, you know, but it's still a hub motor. It's not a mid-drive, despite the really interesting mid-box kind of thing we have here. That's actually just where the controller and a lot of the wires are, and they were able to separate the controller from the battery, which is right there, from the motor, which spreads out the heat and just makes it a lot more serviceable. Love the integrated wires and stuff. So, you know, this is a pretty thoughtful, very purpose-built electric bike, and to have a hub motor that really feels zippy and powerful, I think some of that is actually because they custom designed and set this motor up. It's not just like an off-the-shelf motor. You can see the branding there, iGO Drive. I think it's in partnership with Shengyi, which is a motor brand that I've heard of before and tested on many other companies. And down here we have a 32 pulse cadence sensor. So it's not like the little plastic cadence sensor with the external exposed magnets. This is like inside, and it's 32 pulse versus 12, which is usually the max that I'm used to seeing on other bikes. This bike is priced at $22.99 in USD or $25.99 in Canadian, which is pretty good value, especially because it's completely purpose built and it's got everything you need. They have a good warranty. They ship all over, and they also work with some shops, so that's pretty nice to see. These guys have been around since 2006. I've covered a bunch of their products, and the new Discovery series is kind of unique because of the hardware, but also because they have a smartphone app. So I'm going to show you that later, but let's hit some of the hardware and just go through this. We've got about 63 millimeters of travel on the SR Suntour NEX. This is a spring fork, so it's not super lightweight, but it does have kind of a compression adjust lockout feature here, which is nice. And then under this plastic cap on this side, we've got preload adjust. So if you're a heavier rider, you can preload that spring and you won't get so much sag and squishy feeling, which is awesome. It's nice to have that feature. We talked a little bit about the fenders and the rear rack. I love that it comes with a bungee strap and then some sort of like mounting hardware here that maybe you could slide some different trunk bags on and connect them easily. It is using standard gauge tubing. We've got a pannier blocker on the side, so you're not going to get your bags touching the wheels and maybe getting those straps tangled quite so easily. Check out this Velo saddle with a handle underneath, 300 millimeter long rigid Pro Max seat post, and it's 31.6 millimeter wide, which is wider. Like a lot of times I'm used to seeing 27.2 on city bikes. So again, that's sort of that hybrid thing. This is a little bit more trail worthy, which is kind of nice to see. We do have an adjustable angle tool-free stem from Satori. This one has a nice extra height built into it, like 80 millimeters, and then it's 110 millimeters long, so you can really put that out far or straight up like I have it. And this creates like an upright body position, which is really comfortable. The bike only comes in one frame size, although again, it kind of has those 3 different versions. And I measured this as like 17.5 inches on the seat tube. So I'm actually kind of tempted. I think I would enjoy the step-thru Atwater, but if you have like a car rack and you're trying to hang this off of it, this could be a nice feature. And I love that they've got bottle cage bosses built into the bottom of that top tube right there. Very nice. I do want to send a shout out to Caps Bicycles. They're really helping me out here, kind of receiving and assembling some bikes. And then I get to talk to them and say, you know, why do you carry these guys? What do you think? Is it working out well for you? I've had my own experiences with iGO over the years, but you know, they seem to echo that it's a good company to work with. And you know, they're staying true to their customers and to their dealers. It's nice to be able to go in and have the bike set up and get some maintenance work over time. So coming down here to the wheels again, these are 700 by 47C. These are Maxxis Revolt. They have Silk Shield puncture protection and they're e-bike rated, but they don't have reflective sidewalls. So that was one of the trade-offs. There's a little bit of a almost reflective pattern built into that chain protector, and again, really nice to have that if you have pants or a dress on, especially with the step-thru frames. Got the fenders and everything, very nice. A little bit quieter because the hardware is sturdier, but it does weigh a little bit more. So this bike's about 62.5 pounds with the battery, and the battery is like 6.8 pounds. We'll take that off later and talk about it a little bit more. You know, there are also quite a few wires up here. That was one of the first things I noticed, but they've got this color-coded, like twisted thread connector with rubberized washer in between, so they're going to be a little bit more water resistant, which is great because we are kind of in a rainforest here and in Vancouver, and the stuff can get wet. Most e-bikes are highly water resistant, but you still don't want to spray it hard with your hose or submerge it. So again, this is just a little bit of a step up. This and sort of the mid-frame controller box. The bike itself is fairly balanced front to rear, and a lot of that weight is low in center, right where you'd want it. So I appreciate that. Why do we have so many wires though? Well, that's because we've got the little display, a trigger throttle. This is a class 2 electric bike, meaning pedal assist plus throttle on demand. And then we have motor inhibitors on both brake levers. So anytime you hit the brakes, it's going to stop the motor power. And that's great considering how zippy and powerful this motor is. 180 millimeter discs on both the front and rear, hydraulic, dual piston. Good stuff, like very, very capable and very satisfying for a bike that could potentially be loaded up with gear or you know, And we mentioned the suspension fork a minute ago, but we can also get a suspension seat post if you want to. Just look for the 31.6 millimeter diameter and you could smooth out the ride a little bit and create like a cushy feel. Hardtail electric bikes are really wonderful because they are so versatile. Your gear is going to be solid on that rear rack, and it's pretty far back. You'll notice, like, if that seat goes down, it's not going to collide with your trunk bag or your panniers or anything like that. It's a really good setup that way. Drivetrain, we've got a 42-tooth steel chainring up front, a rust-resistant Z chain from KMC. Very nice. Again, coming back to that rainy environments that you might be riding in. And then we have a Shimano Altus derailleur, which is one step up from the base level. It's still kind of like a entry-level derailleur, but with 8 speeds and being more of like a city bike versus a mountain bike, I think this is fine. It helps them hit that lower price point. The cassette is 11 to 32 tooth, which is great. That's perfect for a bike like this. A couple other things that stood out when I was studying the specs and stuff. I like the pedals. They are fairly sturdy. Wellgo's a good company, and they've got that rubberized tread, so if you slip off, you're not going to cut your shin like a mountain bike pedal that might have metal spikes on it or something. And then this kickstand, 40mm mounting provision, it stays very clear from that left pedal. You're not going to get pedal lock if you're backing the bike up out of your garage. It does have adjustable length as well. Just great job overall. Now I'd like to show you the battery pack. So we have a little spider here. I'm just going to take this guy over here and put him on the leaf. There we go. And unlock the battery. So we just turn it to the up position like that. Before we do this, we've got a little rubber cover. That's how you'd get to the charging port if it was left on the bike, but you can take it off. So let's go ahead and do that. We just turn that dial a little bit, and then the battery's going to come out. The challenge here is that, see this? It kind of collides with that front fender. I mean, these are awesome fenders and stuff, but there just isn't a whole lot of clearance here. So I found that, I have to kind of turn the wheel sideways like that. Oh boy. And then kind of wiggle the battery like this. There we go. So that's how you do it. There's the interface. Oh, it does have like a little LED charge level indicator, so you can get a quick idea of how full it is if it's not on the bike. And then there it is. There's the charging port. The charger itself, I've seen many times, weighs about 1.5 pounds, sans, and it's rated at 54.6 volts, 2 amp output. So this is kind of an average charger. Like, it's probably going to take 6 hours to charge this 48 volt, 14 amp hour pack completely. This is great capacity. And it weighs about 6.8 pounds, this battery. So there's no like great handle built into it, but you can hold it pretty easily from this plastic cover. And because it's black, it's not like paint matched, it's going to make these a little bit more affordable to replace or cross compatible if you have the Atwater or the Berri. So again, this is a great setup for sort of maybe a his and hers, or just some friends that want to go out and ride together and buy the same bikes from the same company or the same dealer. So getting this back on, what I've discovered works pretty well is you turn this to lock, and then I just like to take the keys out, and then you just set it in here like this. There we go. And then you really kind of need 2 hands to squeeze pretty tightly here. There we go, to get it to click. And then just make sure that it's secure before you go for a ride, so it doesn't tumble out on you. That would be a bummer. So once the battery is all charged up and mounted, ready to go for a ride, you can turn on this little display panel here. There's a power button, an M button, and then plus and minus. So we hold the power button for just a second, and it actually buzzes. So this thing offers haptic feedback. I think it's where they use like audio, the speaker, to kind of create some buzz or some vibration, which is really nice, because if you're riding this and it's kind of small, like imagine you're sitting way up here and you just can't read it super well, even though it is color, but you can feel it. So like when I'm gonna put the camera like right on the frame here. I don't know if you can feel that or not, but it's very cool because it buzzes a little bit. And now, one thing that's not super cool is that there's no USB charging ports on this or the battery anywhere on the bike, which would have been nice considering, it's a very high capacity battery pack. They're using Samsung cells. It's nice to be able to tap into that, like especially if you're using your smartphone for GPS or the app, which they offer, right? So imagine you're using the app and over time you're kind of using your phone's battery. That's an area where I'd love to see them expand a little bit in the future. The other complaint I have is that there are 9 levels of assist, and the throttle is limited by the level of assist that you choose, even though this is a variable speed throttle. So if I push it just a little bit, I get a little bit of power, and then a little bit more, I get more, right? So it's a variable speed throttle. Why are they limiting me with the levels of assist? I mean, that just means that I have to click, 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 all the way up to 9 to get full power. it almost defeats the purpose of having the throttle for me. It's just such a bummer. I wish that wasn't the case. And the other thing is you can't go around. It's not like, imagine the bike starts off in level 1, which means that the throttle is like hot. So, you know, be careful not to bump it. But if I could go down all the way up to 9, at least it would save me like 6 or 7 clicks. But you can't do that, alas. And you do have to reach over the trigger throttle here. So there's room for improvement, but the fact that it's color and it's got these 10 bars for wattage, so you can tell how many watts the motor's putting out, and then 10 bars for battery capacity, as well as a percentage indicator, that is so nice. It's going to help you avoid running out of batteries when you're far from home. We're in kilometers per hour, but you can switch it to miles per hour if you want. Got a lights indicator. To activate the lights, you just hold the plus button for a couple seconds and it turns on. Look at this. 2 LEDs in that rear light and a big reflective surface. It's pretty well protected by the rack. A little bit of side visibility. The headlight is awesome. It has cutouts on the side and, interestingly, on the top as well. So imagine you're riding. I guess you probably wouldn't be seeing the top of the light, but I was a little concerned that you were going to kind of blind your night vision by seeing light shining up. Like, what? That's just a branding thing, and I might put like a piece of electrical tape over it, because I don't really care that it's Bushell. I just want to be seen and see where I'm going. It's a fairly bright light, 50 lumens. They call this the shiny 50, and you can see, you know, this thing could be kind of bouncing around a little bit. It is on the arch of the suspension fork, so that fork's gonna be going up and down with the wheel, whereas the rest of the bike is suspended. It'd be a lot nicer to have that right up here, or maybe even on top of the handlebar or the stem. At least it points where you steer. And again, a little bit brighter. It's nice that they both run off the battery pack. They get the job done. A little flick bell up here, a little window for the shifters and stuff. It's a pretty nice cockpit. The display's not removable, but you can adjust it down to reduce glare. The other options here are this M button. You just press it and we'll go from trip distance to time, like trip time, odometer, average speed, max speed. So you can kind of cycle through that way. There's also a little icon here for like troubleshooting, I think, if your bike's having issues, and you can get error codes and report back to the company. If you hold the minus button, you get walk mode, which could be useful if you're climbing a hill or something. You got a load of groceries and you don't want to try to balance it. You can always use the throttle as well as kind of like a more powerful walk mode, I guess. Which is great. And then there's like a couple of extra settings. At first I thought you would hold plus and minus, but what that does is it clears the trip readout, and it would also clear like your timer and some of those other ones. To get to the settings, you press the M button and hold it. So let's do that. Press it. We've got the units here, so we're in metric. Brightness, I guess I'm gonna hit minus to go to the next one. Brightness, that's great, because sometimes at night, the color display can really like blind you. Remember I was talking about the headlight being a concern? I love that they give you brightness adjustment. Auto timer to turn the bike off. Battery voltage, you don't wanna mess with that. Battery indicator could be percentage or just the readout. And then there's more, but you need a password to get to more. So they're kind of blocked off. So I'm gonna go ahead and exit that. And then I wanna show you the app real quick too. So here we go, guys. This is the iGO Connect app, and we can see the motor voltage, current amps, assist level, power level, and watts, and then another battery infographic here. I really love that they're giving you a battery percentage and voltage and just everything you need. A speedometer up here in miles per hour. So you can imagine, you know, having this mounted to the handlebar or something and just give you a little bit more feedback. Frankly, I don't know if I would use this a whole lot. There isn't like a mapping feature built in or anything like that. Just Bluetooth connections. You find the bike you want, you click it, and it syncs very quickly and easily. It's a lot easier to use this. It's not super complex like some of the other apps. And then we have this on-the-fly off-road mode. So you can enable off-road mode, which means that the bike will go up to 28 miles per hour in pedal assist, still only 20 with the throttle. And again, off-road, so this is like for private property or certain forests, like national forest areas where people ride snowmobiles and you know, motorcycles and ATVs and stuff. You could bring your e-bike there. Be careful though. And then different modes. So here's standard mode right now. You can go to economy, which is gonna slow down the acceleration a little bit and conserve your battery a bit better. I'm in standard and it's very, very peppy. So economy might not be a bad idea. I think it would still feel very satisfying. And then there's sport mode, and you can actually adjust them. So you can go in here and click advanced. By the way, when you're updating these, it says don't move the bike, so it's giving you a lot of really good feedback. You can change the acceleration parameters. Really cool. I'm gonna just go back to standard mode. That's how it was set up before, and it's very capable in this mode. And I think now might be a good time to just hop on and take this thing for a spin and let you see for yourself how this thing performs. There's a little bit of extra noise, kind of a zippy sound, but that's to be expected with a geared hub motor. These things they're light and they're more compact than gearless, but they do create usually kind of a ring sound. They do freewheel without any friction though, so it's not like this is going to be slowing you down or anything. Okay guys, we're on this nice little forest path. This is a hill. It's actually a pretty steep hill. Sometimes it's hard to tell with these, you know, GoPros and stuff, but I'm relatively flat right now, and that thing just, it goes up. Climbing this, especially without any momentum, just using pedal power on a 62.5 pound bike, that would be a lot of work. So we're gonna test this. I've got it in assist level 5, and I'm just gonna use the throttle because, again, I've been very impressed with how powerful the bike is. I only weigh 135 pounds, but still, it's feeling more powerful than average other electric bikes. So here we go. Look at that. I'm still climbing right now. I mean, this is... I did not expect it to make it up, and now we're just gonna blast off because it's like relatively fast, or flat here. Still climbing. Going almost 20 kilometers per hour here. So yeah, very impressed. I'm very impressed with this bike. Still climbing, no problem. Listen how quiet it is too. Yeah, this is a great setup, you know, between the metal fenders and stuff and the extra power that you're getting. They said that this uses a pure sine wave for the controller and that it's up to 70 amps. A lot of times I'm just used to hearing like 22 amp controller. So up to 70, that doesn't mean it's using that much, but that's very impressive, especially when you come back to like the, you know, 53 Newton meter torque rating and 500 watt motor. Those all sound like, yeah, I kind of expect that, but this performs better. It's definitely a step up in that regard. Okay guys, we're looking down at a 42 tooth steel chainring. There's no narrow wide or anything fancy, and it actually doesn't have a guide, but it does have this cover, and I think for most rides, sort of the neighborhood urban environment, you're going to be fine. I haven't had any trouble with the chain bouncing off even on this gravel trail. 11 to 32 tooth 8-speed cassette totally gets the job done. And then if we look back here, you can't really see it, but inside this bottom bracket we've got that 32 pulse cadence sensor, that's awesome, and it definitely picks up quickly and it stops quickly, but you can always override with either one of those hydraulic disc brake levers. I like that they have adjustable reach, because coming back to the different you know, Atwater or the Berri, the step-thru frames, if you're a more petite rider, maybe you have smaller hands, hydraulic brakes are just totally the way to go. They stop you with a lot less you know, hand strength. You don't need to bear down as hard, and 180 millimeters is just fantastic in terms of size. The one thing that is a bit of a question mark is that this frame is definitely kind of a medium or even a small medium, and this is sort of the largest frame with the high step. I'm 5'9", my inseam is like 31.5, and I'm raising the seat pretty high. So if you're someone who's really tall and you're looking for a big frame, this is going to be a little bit on the small side. Keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and just kick things off in the highest level of assist so you can really get a sense for how that motor might sound up close. And here we go. Okay, that was all throttle. I guess it's taken me like a full revolution of the cranks to get the cadence sensor to kick in. It definitely feels responsive. I'm going to go to the lowest gear, so I'm going to have a slow cadence and see how quickly it fires then. much faster. It was only like a quarter revolution before it kicked in. So maybe it has something to do with like how fast the bike is already going, or just how the motor's already operating. But it is very responsive for climbing, and in a low gear, you know, when you're just approaching a hill or getting started, you want the extra power like right away. So I love that. And then again, trigger throttle, always nice to have that. Again, it's just the only complaint being, I wish I had full power on that trigger throttle, and I have given that feedback to the company, because it's like, well, you have a variable speed throttle, why don't you give me the range of outputs? Why do I have to click every time? That could get a little bit tiresome. So this is what the display light looks like in bright conditions. It's definitely a little bit dull. You can adjust the brightness, but I think I already have it pretty high. So I wanted to show you what this looks like in assist level 1. Right, kind of get the zip initially, and then it just cuts out. We're at about 15 kilometers per hour right now. And again, with the throttle, you don't really get any extra power because, you know, we weren't under that 15 yet, so the motor's just kind of like coasting along, and that's definitely going to extend your range, but it still gives you pretty good like starting torque. Yeah, it's louder than I expected from standstill, but once it gets you there, it turns like it almost turns off. It's very silent. Now I'm arrowing all the way up to like 9, and we're hauling. Yeah, and the other thing, you know, I mentioned that haptic feedback before. It's nice to be able to feel that. Once the wind is passing by, though, it's not quite as noticeable as when you're at standstill. And I also feel like I was clicking these buttons pretty fast before, right? And I'm getting the buzz, but it wasn't actually switching assist levels. Like, you almost have to slow your clicking down for it to be accurate each time. So I don't know. I mean, these are minor complaints. This thing definitely works, gives you lots of good feedback. But yeah, I like to be really thorough. So those were just a couple things I noticed, and it ends up being a lot of clicking. Just to, you know, so you turn the bike on and then you're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, that's like took a lot of clicks to go, and then you turn the bike off. Okay, and then you go for a ride the next day after you've charged your battery, boot it up, and we're back at 1. So you got to click a whole bunch more times. Yeah, I want to say, for someone who might be commuting or having to park their bike in the garage or at a rack, it's nice that you can take that battery off, or even if you're just lifting the frame, you're going to reduce the weight by that like 6 and 7-ish pounds. And then storing that battery in like a cool, dry location is going to help extend the life of those Samsung battery cells, because extreme heat is pretty hard on lithium-ion batteries over time. It can sort of lower your full capacity. Extreme cold, it has the opposite effect, where it's not necessarily damaging the cells, but it is going to kind of limit your range for that day. Like the battery's cold, you know, so you get like half the range. So it's worth keeping in mind, just to help extend those rides. Well, guys, I think that's about it. That's the Discovery Bonaventure from iGO. Big thanks to them and Caps Bicycles and New Westminster and Coquitlam. They're always helping me out, doing a good job. And it's just wonderful to get that like face-to-face feedback and kind of behind the scenes. Like, what do you really think about this bike? I've enjoyed it, and I think it's a great value. There are a couple little areas they can improve, maybe the reflective sidewall stripes and, you know, USB charger and the trigger throttle implementation, but you're really getting some great hardware here that's sturdy, that's quiet, that's positioned right, and I've really enjoyed it. So for the full written review, check out ElectricBikeReview.com, and you can compare this to some of the other iGO electric bikes. We've got a little comparison tool. Please chime in with any comments or feedback you have here in the comments or back at the site or in the forums. I love you guys. Ride safe, and we'll see you in the next one.